Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So it's time we talk about Arizona and the 2026 Arizona gubernatorial election, because as we're getting closer and closer to the 2026 midterms, or to the primaries for said midterms, we're getting a lot of updates about certain candidates either, getting certain endorsements. Obviously, the Trump endorsement is of utmost importance, and we're getting more polling data, more updates. The campaign season does start now. That's why we're mixing in a lot of midterm stuff in with all the current events that are going on. And of all the opportunities that Republicans have to pick up a seat, a governorship, a governor's mansion — I know technically Arizona doesn't have like a governor's mansion, most states do, but these are the state houses, not like the state House of Representatives or the state legislature, but the state house itself, the Arizona governorship. This is crucial, and this is a state that voted for Trump 2 times out of 3. Some might say more than that, to be honest, given certain circumstances, certain election laws. Obviously, there's still ways to go with the Arizona election system, but they did pass an election integrity law before 2024, thankfully, and it did help things go a hair more smoothly, but the long counts are still a problem. But that's besides the point. What we do know is that there's an election coming up, and this is crucial because Katie Hobbs is the second most vulnerable — in fact, she is the most vulnerable Democrat incumbent governor in 2026. I think it's the second most likely pickup for a Republican, right after the state of Kansas, because Laura Kelly will be retiring. Kansas is a red state. It voted for Donald Trump overwhelmingly, maybe not as much as years past, but still 16 points is a lot. I mean, let's not fool ourselves here. But Arizona voted for Trump by 5, a little bit more than 5, turned a corner. A lot of people said Democrats might win it and never squander the state, especially to like a Trump-aligned Republican. But it has turned a corner. We can look into the data as to why, but this is going to be crucial because Katie Hobbs is not popular. You have Democrats who are even thinking about possibly running for it, like Adrian Fontes, who's decided that he's just going to run for re-election. But Katie Hobbs, she is going to run, as we know, and Republicans have had this primary brewing for a while. We've talked about it a little bit, including in the last video, between Andy Biggs and Karrin Taylor Robson, who ran against Kari Lake and poured in a bunch of money against her in the primary. Kari Lake was running away with it. She tried to make it close, and what it did was it was a kamikaze campaign. She wasn't able to win, but she weakened Kari Lake. And obviously a lot went down on election day, election night in Arizona in 2022. But if it wasn't for Karrin Taylor Robson, it wouldn't have mattered. Kari Lake would have won. Arizona would have been saved. But she decided to just get involved when she shouldn't have. She didn't do anything. She didn't campaign for her. She came out in support of, in-state tuition for illegal aliens. But that was literally the only thing she did. She's a grifter. She's endorsed Democrats for, city council. And then you have Andy Biggs, who is, he's not as controversial as Kari Lake. Because he doesn't butt heads as much, but he is a fighter. He is somebody who's America first through and through, and he is announced his bid. And Donald Trump preemptively endorsed Karrin Taylor Robson. And if I disagree with the president, sometimes people are not happy about that. But I did say at the time this was a bad endorsement. Not a lot of people disagreed with me, but Donald Trump has decided to do the right thing and kind of redeem that endorsement, because he came out and he said that I like Karrin Taylor Robson a lot. And this was like a deal they made because oh, fine, I'll endorse you if you donate to my campaign, which if you're Donald Trump, I get it. I understand it. But still, the people of Arizona might not agree with that endorsement, and they don't have to listen. And if you look at the polling, if there's any of the polls here, but there have been some polls, and you see this here, 71-14. From NicoPac, and Pulse Decision 45-16. I mean, those are brutal numbers for Karrin Taylor Robson, because she just ran a campaign a few years back and has, near universal name recognition in the Republican primary electorate, and she's getting decimated by Andy Biggs, who's well known and well liked in his district. But still, Donald Trump decided to co-endorse and say, Yeah, I endorsed her, but when Andy decided to run, I had a problem. Two great candidates, two great people, wonderful champions, and I'm going to give my complete and total endorsement to both. Either one will never let you down, make America great again. So it was spectacular that he did that, because now Andy Biggs is pretty much going to be a lock. He's got the support of the grassroots and MAGA, and also he's somebody that is not, hated by a lot of people. Because you have people that are like, he's a weak candidate. He's not electable. Well, you have a white woman named Karen on the other side who, again, is objectively weaker, and Arizona can do better. They'll say, what about Kari Lake? Well, let's look at the data about that, because Arizona, this is in 2023. Republicans had an advantage of 177,000 per this update. And for the 2022 final update, they had an advantage of like 160. So they actually went up here. But looking at their current update, Republicans have an advantage, and growing, by the way, of like 324,000. So we've seen this translate directly as well to the election results. So you have a shift of about 150, 160,000 plus, and counting, by the way, to the Republican side. And what this is doing is it is shifting the state to the right. In fact, you saw a shift of around, 100-some, 200-some thousand between 2020 and 2024, and the results shifted to the right by almost, if not 200,000 voters from the same time frame. So technically, yes, it's not a one-to-one. It doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen, but you can't ignore the general trend of the state. The state is back where it was in the pre-Trump days, but you have a different coalition. For example, you're doing better in South Phoenix. You're doing better in some of these Hispanic areas. You're doing better with younger voters. You're doing, weaker with these old, like, McCain-style boomers. But there's not as many of them as people make there out to be in Arizona. And Republicans have a high floor. And he won Maricopa County by more than he won it by in 2016. He won the state of Arizona by more. The map doesn't look identical, but still, it's a red state. And it's a state that deserves a governor who's going to be tough on the border, not somebody who coddles illegal aliens like Karrin Taylor Robson. And you get that with Andy Biggs. People talk about electability and certain candidates. It's not necessarily the MAGA brand more so than it is anything else that's the electability problem. In fact, you could look at a certain race and you could point to why a candidate wins or loses. And, Tudor Dixon, it wasn't a MAGA problem. It was an abortion problem. Doug Mastriano was an abortion problem, not really a very competent campaign problem. Andy Biggs mixes MAGA with competence. And Karrin Taylor Robson is somebody who defended the old school abortion ban. People get on Kari Lake's case about statements she made that were recorded in 2022. Karrin Taylor Robson said the same exact thing, except, more egregious to the average, independent voter. So it's like in Arizona, that's going to be blaring wall to wall. Andy Biggs is pro-life, but he doesn't have that baggage. And that's kind of the difference here. And that's why Biggs is somebody that I believe is not only more MAGA, he's more electable. Besides, Karrin Taylor Robson has ran it obnoxiously, like, look at me, Trump endorsed me campaign. But the same people that got on Lake's case about that in 2022 are saying nothing about that for Karrin Taylor Robson in 2024. So it's selective outrage. Biggs is the guy. He's also Mormon, which helps out a lot too, because there's a lot of Mormons in the state of Arizona, and he can relate to them. He can resonate with them. He will drive up turnout. His district is a heavily Mormon district. And, Maricopa County, he's from Maricopa County. You're going to want somebody that's from there that, voters can resonate with. And he's the guy, in my opinion, who's going to go out there and win big bigs, they call him, America First Andy, whatever you want to call him. He is the best option overall for Arizona. He's going to be a tough conservative governor, not some pushover who just tries to buy her way to the nomination. Now, if I'm Karrin Taylor Robson, I'm getting on the phone with Andy Biggs and I'm saying, hey, Andy, let's make a deal, because they made the lieutenant governorship an office. And if she were to drop out, clear the primary field for him, in exchange for her backing his campaign, she possibly could make a deal, could get that done. But it's like, is she going to do that? Is she somebody that is just too, I guess you would say, self-aggrandizing, where she'll try to throw tens of millions of dollars at him trying to beat him the way she did with Kari Lake and failed? It's a late primary. It's divisive. It's just sabotage. We'll see where the polling stands a few months from now, I would understand why she might want to stay around for a little bit longer. But it's like if Trump endorsed the other candidate, even when you got endorsed by Trump, by the way, you were still losing in some polls 71-14. Even if you want to say the 71 is absurd, it's like what percentage is undecided or in the other candidate's column? Okay, 86% in this poll, 84% in this poll. When you've been campaigning and been touting the Trump endorsement, you're only going up 2%. Like, I know the election is over a year away, but now that Trump leveled the playing field with the endorsements, yeah, that's not going to work out too well. Andy Biggs is the guy, and it's a very good thing Trump did, because if this was a close primary, A, it would have been late and divisive, and B, he would have helped the weaker candidate win if she did narrowly win the primary. But now it's different. So you're seeing that here, and you look at some of these candidates who have filed paperwork, like they're not going to really go anywhere. So it's a good thing that you don't have a massive field. It's a good thing you can consolidate the field early, because the Democrat side, that's what they have. They have an incumbent that is definitely part of the incumbency advantage. But when you're not really all that popular, because Katie Hobbs is not, some polls will show her above water. I don't know if I really buy them, because I've seen like other polls, including some of those polls we've seen that were the primary polls where, Katie Hobbs is very vulnerable. She hasn't done much. She's not really well liked, and she's not going to be able to hide from a debate the way she did with Kari Lake when she's actually governor. It's not going to work the same when she's kind of like the incumbent. It's not going to play out that well, and Andy Biggs is somebody that independent voters, especially Mormon voters, are going to like more so than they liked Lake, or they liked, Masters back in 2022. And I like both of those individuals, and that's true. But in terms of the strength of candidate, I think Biggs, if they unify behind Biggs, if they fund Biggs well, Biggs is going to go out there and he's going to win, and he's got a much larger pool of voters to work with. I mean, it's true. If you want to go back and look at 2022 in the state of Arizona, you look at the proximity of the governor's race. Kari Lake would have won easily. Blake Masters, in fact, would have even ran pretty much even. In fact, he would have beaten Mark Kelly if enough of those voters showed up and voted. So definitely this is something to watch in the state of Arizona. That is true. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but it's a different Arizona. It's a red state again, but it's becoming more MAGA. This is not the old guard, and Biggs is somebody that can bridge the gap between the old guard and the new guard, unite the party, win, and be a solid governor. He has my full endorsement, and Trump took a major, major W by, spreading the love per se with the endorsements. And it was really just an endorsement for Andy, if we're going to be completely honest, because Trump's not going to really, in most cases, get out of it. And he's done this dual endorsement thing in the past where he said Eric in the Missouri primary when he was torn between Eric Greitens and Eric Schmidt. And he did the same thing, I believe it was with one race or two races last year. But I know one was the primary with Abe Hamadeh and Blake Masters that Hamadeh ended up winning with the late deciders, because it was a very late dual endorsement. The late deciders, election day voters, they broke for Masters. So it's a good thing he did it now and not at the last minute, but it will pad his endorsement record, and it was the right thing to do in this situation. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.